Do you remember the first time, not the first time you saw him, but the first time you smelled him after he left? You were distracted, thinking about something trivial, trying to get through the day, and then, out of nowhere, that scent, as if the past invaded your body through your skin without knocking on the door, as if someone had opened a wound that you didn't even know was still bleeding. Your heart raced, you lost your breath, and no one noticed, because it was just a perfume, just that, a detail that anyone would ignore, but not you, because that smell was the last trace of him still wandering the world, the last sign of his presence that your body recognized before your mind understood what was happening. And for a while, that smell was a walking trauma, an invisible trap around every corner, on the street, in line at the bank, in the grocery store aisle. Just someone passing by, someone completely unknown, and the ground opened up again. It was as if you were sucked back to that exact moment, that day, that conversation, that touch. The memory gained physical texture. It wasn't just mental. It was in your chest, in your bones, in your stomach. You were sweating cold, shaking without understanding, swallowing your tears in the bathroom, exiting the scene as if you just needed some air. And no one knew that at that moment. You were fighting for your sanity, that's it. The scent was a survival trigger, as if your body on its own tried to remind you, be careful. This is where it hurt, even without wanting to, even without logic. Even after months or years, you would even say it's over, and believed it most of the time. But when the perfume came, you realized that it still wasn't. It still hurt. And it wasn't nostalgia, it was real pain, it wasn't romanticization, it was trauma, because you gave everything, and lost so much, because you believed until the last thread. And still, the rope snapped. And the worst, it was you who had to keep pretending everything was normal, while inside everything was falling apart in slow motion. If this has ever happened to you, comment, I needed to hear this. That perfume to you was concrete proof that the body also has memory, that love doesn't end when it's over, and that healing isn't a button. It's a process, slow, invisible, almost silent. But you would only realize this later. At that stage, everything was still very intense. His absence was a ghost shadowing you in every detail. It was the schedule, the music, the phrases, the habits, the Sundays, and the smell. The smell was the worst of all, because there was no way to protect yourself. You couldn't predict it. You couldn't block it on Instagram. You couldn't avoid it. It came, out of nowhere, caught you off guard, and dismantled everything all over again. That was when you started to suspect that your mourning wasn't just emotional. It was cellular. It was recorded in layers deeper than you imagined. And it didn't matter how many people told you it was time to move on. It didn't matter how much advice you were given. No one was inside you when that scent filled the air. No one saw the avalanche crashing within your lungs. You wanted to forget, yes. You wanted to erase. You wanted to neutralize all of it. But you couldn't. And this was not weakness. It was simply truth. You tried to substitute that perfume. You bought a similar one. Or tried to cling to another scent. Maybe someone gave you a new gift. Maybe you tried using a new brand just to create a different bond. But nothing stuck, because his scent was already linked to what formed you and destroyed you at the same time. And that cannot be replaced. It's not about the perfume, it's about what the perfume represented. It was the symbol of a time that won't come back, of a version of yourself that existed there, of everything you were, for him, with him, despite him. And that's why it hurt so much. You even blamed yourself. You thought, am I exaggerating? Why does this still affect me so much? Shouldn't I have gotten over it by now? But deep down, you knew. The intensity of what you experienced couldn't fit into common standards. It wasn't just a fling, it wasn't an affair. It wasn't light, it was visceral. It was surrender, it was loss. It was the collision of inner worlds. And because of that, even the scent, even that would bring you to your knees. You tried to rationalize it, but it didn't help. The body doesn't understand logic. It just feels, and your body says was still at war with memories that your mind pretended to have conquered. That's the side no one talks about, no one teaches. How do you heal something that still lives in your sense of smell? How do you convince your own heart that scent is no longer a threat? You didn't know, but you kept moving. You kept living, working, laughing, posting, while inside his perfume still visited you from time to time, and left your soul unanchored for hours. Does this make sense to you so far? Write yes down below. But then, something started to change. You still didn't know. You still couldn't put a name to it, but something was weakening. It wasn't the love you felt. It wasn't the importance he had. It was the impact, the effect. That punch the scent caused, we'd began to lose its strength. You no longer stopped in the middle of the street. You didn't need to run away. You didn't cry in the bathroom anymore. It was almost imperceptible. But it was real, and one day you realized it didn't happen overnight. There was no warning, no ritual, no official announcement saying, "Congratulations, you're moving on." It was just different. You still felt, you still remembered, you still loved. Maybe, but the weight had shifted. What once crushed you now merely bothered you. What once paralyzed you now only left subtle scars. What once made you cry uncontrollably now caused a sigh and a lost gaze for 2 seconds, and nothing more. It happened like that. The pain stopped screaming and started to whisper. You could carry on with your day. You did things without abrupt pauses. You were able to hear the music you had been avoiding for months, revisiting a conversation, saying his name without choking. And little by little, very little by little, that feeling of being torn apart inside began to fade away. You couldn't say when it started. You only noticed when you realized it already was. It happened on any ordinary day. Maybe you were with someone, or alone. Maybe on the street, on the subway, in some store. And then, that scent. The same perfume or something similar. You passed by, it invaded your space, you felt it, yes, you still recognized it. But what followed wasn't an avalanche, wasn't a collapse, wasn't the old sharp pain. It was just a perception. Almost like, oh, that scent, and nothing more. No tears, no cold hands, no racing heart. Just a memory, clean, almost neutral, as if someone blew a reminder without poison. You might have stopped, wondered if you were okay, if that was real, if it was indifference, coldness, or healing. You might have even felt a bit of guilt, because sometimes moving on feels like betraying what you felt, as if not hurting anymore was synonymous with forgetting or loving less. But it's not. It's just the end of a battle, not the end of meaning. You haven't forgotten. You're just not trapped anymore. And that's the true journey. The pain that screams, one day gets tired and begins to transform. Not because love ceased to exist, but because you became bigger than what hurt you. That's the part no one prepares you for. The day you start to surprise yourself with your own strength, with your ability to not fall where you always fell before, with the internal silence where there used to be too much noise. You look back and realize what used to destroy you now only visits you lightly. You still feel, but you feel differently. Because the perception has changed, because now it's you who looks at the past as not the other way around. Before, the past pulled you, drowned you, you were dragged into him with brutality. Now, he's just passing by, like a breeze, like a memory you recognize but no longer obey. That is healing, even if it doesn't seem like it yet, even if it doesn't have a name. It's like a weariness that fades away, a tension that's no longer in your body. You start to breathe more deeply without realizing it. You begin to laugh genuinely without effort. You start to forget the date of the end. You begin to stop counting the months, and one day you simply live. This journey, however, was not linear. There were relapses. There were days when the scent still felt like a dagger. There were nights when just one song could make everything crumble again. You thought you were going back to the beginning, that nothing had changed, that it was all an illusion. But it wasn't. It was just another layer being peeled away, another residue being released, another part of the internal process that has no map or timeline, because true healing is not a destination. It's a movement, a continuous flow, a cycle that dissolves slowly, and each time the smell appeared, you reacted less, it hurt less, it lasted less, until one day it was just another scent. And in that moment, you realized that something in you had changed forever. Have you ever experienced something similar? Share with me in the comments. The most beautiful part of this journey is when you understand. You didn't need to forget to move forward. You didn't need to block memories, erase photos, disregard everything you lived through. No, you just needed to reclaim emotional sovereignty over yourself, to stop handing your well-being over to a scent, to a name, to a memory. You needed to return to being the center of your own story, and little by little, That began to happen. Without formulas, without miraculous techniques, without a manual, just living, feeling, allowing. Allowing time to do what only time can do, to deflate what seemed incurable. And this is where something precious happens. You start to realize that the memory still exists, the love you felt is still valid. But now, there's another woman looking at all of this. A woman who no longer needs to run away from a scent, who no longer hides from her own triggers, who doesn't freeze in front of a memory. You are her, even if you haven't fully recognized yourself yet, even if sometimes you still confuse yourself with the pain. You are this new version. You are in it. You've already started. If this text resonates with you, comment a heart down below. But the most beautiful part is still to come. Because one day, you will surprise yourself. And it won't be because the perfume showed up, but because you will choose to wear it again. Not as a return, but as a symbol of reconciliation with who you used to be. You're not at that point yet, but you're getting close, and when that day comes, when you apply the perfume without fear of what it represents, you will understand that the cycle has closed, that you no longer need to avoid anything. You don't have to protect yourself from the past, because now, it no longer defines you. It was on a simple day, no special date, no epiphany vibe. Life was happening as usual. You might have been leaving the house, or opening the drawer where you keep forgotten things. And there it was, the bottle, that one, the same one, the perfume. There was still a little left. You never found the courage to throw it away, or to use it, or to give it away. It stayed there, like a silent relic of something that was once unbearable to touch. But on that day, you looked at it differently. There was no tightness in your chest, no resistance, no alarms going off inside you. It was just a calm glance, present, almost curious, and without really understanding why, you opened it, took a deep breath, smelled it, fully, without fleeing, without rejecting, without averting your eyes, and for the first time it was just a perfume. No automatic memory, no tears held back, no emotional spasms. It was just a scent, familiar, yes, but without poison. It was like finding an old version of yourself and smiling inside, without needing to go back there. It was the proof that something very big had happened. Within, you could now stay right there in the present, in the scent, in the moment, without being swept away. It was in that instant that you realized. It's not that the memory has disappeared. It's not that it has become irrelevant. It's not that the story no longer matters. It's just that now, it doesn't hold you captive anymore. You don't need to protect yourself from what you lived through, because what you lived through shaped you. And it no longer defines you by what broke you, but by what transformed you. You returned whole, lighter, clearer, more you. You learned to walk inside your own body, without tripping over the ruins of what ended. And now, you choose. You choose whether to remember. You choose whether to forget. You choose whether to smile, or simply let it pass. You finally understand what emotional freedom means. It's not about not feeling anything anymore. It's feeling everything, and still standing tall. It's having access to the memory without being swallowed by it. It's recognizing the scent without losing your footing. It's looking back without being disfigured. Have you made it this far? Then write, I return to myself. But the strongest part, the part that gently closes the invisible cycle, is when you understand that you don't need to fight against anything anymore. Not against the pain, not against the memory, not against the days that hurt more than anyone can imagine. You made peace with the story, with him, with yourself. Not because he asked for forgiveness, not because someone gave back what was taken from you, not because everything turned out okay, but because you chose yourself. And you didn't need an audience. You didn't need validation. You didn't need to shout that you won. You just moved on, and you moved on in silence, while everything inside reorganized without making a fuss. This is the kind of healing that no one applauds, because it's not visible, it's not performative, it's not heroic. She is consistent, serena, intimate, and only those who have been through it know what it took to get here. You've made it through, and now you live without fear. You walk the streets and smell all the scents, without thinking of running away, without needing to protect yourself, without closing your heart. You look people in the eye. You talk about love without choking up. You can laugh at the little things. You can even look at someone else's love and feel no jealousy, no emptiness. You can love again, at your own pace, no rush. No need to prove yourself, because you've already understood. You no longer need to be loved to know you are whole, and if one day that same scent passes by you coming from a stranger, you might just smile inside, or not even notice. But if you do notice, it won't be pain. It will be gratitude, for the woman you were, for the pain you faced, for the freedom you built, on your own, without an audience, in the dark, in silence, in the invisible. And today the scent is just a scent, and you are completely yours. If this text stirred something inside you, share it with someone who is still navigating the scent of pain. This conversation doesn't end here. I'll see you in the next video.